You're listening to the Cash Flow Academy podcast with Andy Tanner, your source for investing made easy. Here's Andy Tanner.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Academy podcast. I'm your host, Andy Tanner. This is where investing is made simple, where we talk about entrepreneurship, building teams, investing. It's going to be a lot of fun. Very special guest today. First, I need to welcome John Gordon to our program. John, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us.
Andy, it's great to be with you.
You know, John has an amazing background. He works a lot with, it's an interesting mix because you'll work with the Dodgers and the Atlanta Falcons and the Miami Heat and the Pittsburgh Pirates and the LA Clippers, but you also work with corporations, Dell, Publix, Southwest Airlines, Campbell's Soup. It's an interesting mix. And John is the author of, there's just several books. He's not a one-hit wonder. And you're probably best known for the Energy Bus. We're going to talk about the Energy Bus. And your most recent book is The Power of a Positive Team. We have You Win in the Locker Room First, a number of books that we'll talk about. So he's a guy you can follow on Amazon. Just click because he's always got new stuff. Lots and lots to talk about. But again, thanks so much for being here, John. Tell us first about how, a little bit of your background, your story about how you arrived at where you are. How does a person become an author, number one, and how did you get in the position you are to work and help all of these teams get better?
Yeah, it's interesting. You're talking about my background of working with sports and business. Well, I went to Cornell University and played lacrosse there. So I was an athlete, but I was also a government economics major. So I also had a bent towards entrepreneurism as well. So my parents said ever since I was a kid, I was trying to figure out how to build something and create something and run a business. I would go around and sell shoveling of driveways and then have my brother do it for half the money. So, so I had a mindset, I guess, like that. And now I get to work with all these different great organizations. And it started when I was in business. Years ago, I was in the restaurant business. I ran for city council. I started a nonprofit in Atlanta. So I was very involved in the community and business. And around 30, 31 years old, though, I really started to struggle with, I guess, my identity, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. Was pretty negative, quite a bit, depressed. Going through just a tough time, two young children, just trying to figure it all out. And my wife threatened to leave me because I was so miserable and negative. And again, I wasn't abusive, but I was not a very positive person. I wasn't a great husband. And so I agreed to change. And that began this journey of trying to be a more positive person. So I started to research ways that I could be more positive. And I studied positive psychology. This was during the emerging field of positive psychology. And as that field grew, I was pretty much at the forefront writing a lot about the research that was being done and the steps I was taking to better myself. Well, that led to a book deal, which then led to the Energy Bus. And that book then started to bring me to all these different companies and sports teams that would read this book. Because the book's about being positive yourself, like how to fuel your ride, your bus with positive energy, and how to give that and share that with others to build a great team. So there's a lot of teamwork principles in there, a lot of leadership principles, and a lot of self-growth principles as well.
Each of your books can stand on its own for sure. I mean, anyone could look at a title and say, that's what I want. I will tell you my opinion, though, to get the most, I actually think there's an order to this. And I would tell people to start with the Energy Bus. We're going to get into your latest book, The Power of a Positive Team. But, I wasn't a great athlete by any means. I was tall. The joke I always tell is I could say, I couldn't shoot, I couldn't jump, but I could foul. So they found a spot for me, a big lopey guy on the team. But when I was at the University of Utah, there's so many lessons you learn. You played lacrosse. I played a little bit of basketball. When I was at the University of Utah, I remember the first practice with Coach Majerus. And he took us, we were in the Huntsman Center. It's empty. No one's allowed but the team. Nobody. And a couple managers. And he took us to the middle of the court. I'll never forget this. And the first thing he said, he says, gentlemen, we're going to win our league. And we're going to cut down these nets at the end of the season. But nothing great ever happens without enthusiasm. And he said, I will be the most enthusiastic guy in practice every day. And the day that I'm not, you tell me, and I'll quit my job at Utah. He always used to say that. If I don't do this, I'll quit my job. But he did. And whether people, liked him or didn't, I loved him. But he brought it, man. And he brought that energy. And, there's team books and there are books that kind of start the spark inside of you. And so talk a little bit about the energy bus. You've got several formulas in there about perception and, outcomes and experience and things like that. There's a little bit of Einstein in there about everything's energy if it gets going fast enough. And so talk a little bit about that idea. That was your transformation, saying, look, I'm going to bring it. I'm going to change the way I think. I'm going to bring this energy and I'm going to move my bus along. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, the main character, George, is miserable and negative, so he was based on me. And he meets a bus driver, and she and a cast of characters teach him the 10 rules for the ride of his life to help him become a more positive person, to help him be a better father, to help him be a better leader. And as I wrote that book, it was really everything that I went through personally and the things that I had to do to be a more positive person. And I've actually been using these principles for my entire life now. It's been 12 years since the Energy Bus came out. So I'm now a living testament to these principles. And it's about fueling your ride with positive energy. Every day you got to feed yourself so that you can feed others. Because if you don't have it, you can't share it. So you have to feed yourself, speak to yourself with truth, right? Don't listen to the negative thoughts. Don't listen to yourself. Talk to yourself. Find ways to feed your positive dog on a daily basis, right? We have two dogs inside of us, a positive and a negative dog. And whichever one we feed, that's what grows. Whole formula you're talking about, the formula you're talking about, E plus P equals O. We can't control the events in our life, but we can control our perception, our perspective, and our response to those events. And so often that determines the outcome. So just by staying positive and having a positive perspective through the events we're going through allows us to stay positive, continue to move forward, and then create a better outcome. We often give up, not because it's hard, we give up because we get discouraged. So if we can just stay positive, right, through those challenges and take one step at a time, you'll achieve success on the other side. It's like a team that's losing, right, and they say, hey, we're down, but let's just continue to play our game, stay positive, don't give up. Sure enough, they give themselves a better chance to win, and we see it all the time. Somehow they come back and they win a game. And so it's this mindset and approach to feeding ourselves, but you're feeding yourself so that way you can feed others. And you can do that with enthusiasm, with your passion, with your purpose. And my favorite rule of the Energy Bus is to love your passengers. Because when you love your passengers, you bring out the best in them.
Let's talk a little bit about the people. So, when you have a team, everyone plays on teams. A marriage and a family is a team. Whether you're even if you're single, you're still part of your parents' team. In your workplace, whatever you do, there's teams. And I've always wanted to be part of teams. I volunteer at Park City High School to do some of their basketball. They got a great coach, great NBA player, Mike Doliak up there. And, he talks a lot about, hard work and that energy, that's what gives you the fuel to do the work. And, if work becomes easier when you got a lot of horsepower, but you look at guys that have, given you a lot of accolades, Damian Lillard, guys, you get there through hard work, and bringing that energy is a big deal. But now let's talk a little bit about teams. And that's your latest book, The Power of a Winning Team. And there's a wonderful thing that you talk about that I just resonate with huge is, in a company or a team, you kind of have your policy. But one of the things I'll tell people, and I know you'll agree with this, is that, policy's nice because it's kind of top-down leadership. But when you can get a culture, if I can use this word, that's when it kind of goes spiritual. Like when you have a culture of pride and a culture of work, you almost have horizontal leadership to where, instead of the coach saying, do this or else we'll run a bunch of ladders or whatever, you got your teammates saying, hey, man, let's roll. Come on. Let's get going. So talk a little bit about the importance of culture. And I like that word, actually. I don't know how, I don't know much about, prophets and revelations and miracles, but I do know what a spirit feels like. And when you go cultural instead of political, like policy, when it's a culture instead of policy, it just seems like that's when you go spiritual with your teammates and magic happens. So what's the importance of culture?
Yeah, spirit is very important, and that spirit comes from leadership first and foremost. You talked about Coach Majerus, right? He sets the tone of the culture. The leader always drives the culture, but it comes to life from everyone on the team. So everyone creates the culture of your team. It's not just one person, it's everyone. And culture is not static, it's dynamic. So every day you're creating your culture by what you think, by what you say, by what you believe, and by what you do. So we can elevate it by what we think, we can improve it by what we say, and we can make it great by what we do. And so it's important for everyone to know that this culture you're creating ultimately drives the success of your organization and your team. A lot of teams have talent, but it's the culture that drives that talent towards greatness. I'm sure you've seen a lot of teams, you've been on teams that had a lot of talent, maybe not a great culture, you underperformed. And that's what happens all the time when we don't have a great culture. But then you see a great culture. You see a great culture like the Warriors. You can tell the Raptors have a good culture. And you can see the culture play out. Like you can watch a team. I can see it on TV even. And I can tell the kind of culture they have, the body language, how they compete. Do they give up halfway through the season? Do they give up in the course of a game even? Some teams just give up in the course of a game. So you can see what principles and values are driving that culture. And when you talk about a spiritual, yes, when you have a lot of people on a team that are all moving in the right direction, all passionate and purposeful about what they're trying to accomplish, they have a shared vision, a greater purpose, there is a spiritual experience that happens. I was with Clemson because I've worked with Clemson for the past 7 years, and I was with them when they won the national championship on the sidelines. That was a spiritual experience being with that team in those final moments, watching them win the national championship when Deshaun Watson made that play to Hunter Renfrow for a touchdown to win the game. It was incredible, a spiritual experience. So it is very spiritual, very passionate, and there's something different when you're on a team that has a great culture. And when it's dysfunctional, it's a miserable experience.
For sure. So, I've been on, I was a lousy basketball player. So before I got a chance to hang out at the university, I was at a junior college first. And it was interesting because I liked all my teammates. We liked each other. Didn't have a problem with any of them. They were very likable. We liked each other. But I got to tell you, to be quite frank, and no disrespect to that team, but in comparison to the university and how far we went and how well we did and how much we won, I love those guys, man. I mean, it's not like I just liked them. And the funny thing is I played a lot more and scored a lot more baskets at the junior college level, very much more of a role player, come off the bench once in a while at the university. But I got to tell you, there's a difference between liking the people you're with and loving the people with. I think that would translate into business. If you're leading your team, you should love your players and they should love each other. What's the difference between liking and loving your teammate?
Well, I talk about this in The Power of a Positive Team. A lot of teams today exist in like. It's all about like. No one wants to rock the boat, so they just want to like each other at the surface level, and no one wants to be disliked. And so everyone stays in like. But they never move to love where you have intimacy, where you have difficult conversations, where you go through the hard challenges and the difficult conversations and maybe even some fights and disagreements. And, sometimes it's messy. Sometimes relationships are messy. My wife and I, we will fight over the course of our marriage. We will have some disagreements, but it's that, I don't know, I guess being in the arena together and willing to fight through it and stick together through it all that really builds such a strong relationship. You can't have the best moments without the worst moments. And so I call it relationship grit, that when you have that relationship grit, it means you're willing to stick together and love each other through all of the stuff. And great teams do that, and businesses do that as well. You come to work, you can be part of a really dysfunctional cultural organization, You could have an organization that's not very good, but you could be on a team that loves each other, and you could actually love your company and your job as a result of the team that you're on. When you come to work, you have great relationships, you care about each other, you call each other, when there's a challenge, you go to each other's family events, you perhaps even go to the funeral when someone dies in the family. If you are there for each other, that team becomes your family in so many ways, and you love your job because of that team. And it's the same thing with sports. If you are on a team that really loves each other, you will fight for each other instead of against each other. You will fight against your opponent in a more powerful way, and you will really stick together through all the adversity and challenges.
My father was a religion teacher, and so I was brought up in a home where we studied the Bible a lot, and I had a little Bible, and I would make notes in it. And something you said, reminds me of something that I wrote as a kid. I was probably a teenager. I was going through the Bible, and I was studying faith and works, and then I got into love, and I wrote this in a margin. It was probably next to a parable or something. I says, love is measured by sacrifice. And it just seems like, that's the hallmark of love, is what are you willing to give for another? It's huge unselfishness, laying down your life for another. And great teams, not just sports teams, but great corporate teams, they got teammates that love each other, and you will sacrifice for your teammate. I have a wonderful relationship with a fantastic entrepreneur. He was an NFL guy. He's kind of a bubble player. His name was Than Merrill. Goes to Yale, and he gets drafted by Tony Dungy and the Bucks. I mean, who goes to Yale and gets drafted? No one gets drafted from Yale. But he bounced around the NFL 2-3 years. But he started a wonderful real estate company. And I got to tell you, I would take a bullet for that guy. I love being part of his team. If he would ask me to do something, I'd just do it. And it just goes spiritual. So that love, I love how you talk about that. It's a great part of your book. I was back in, I'm a big Krzyzewski fan. As being a basketball fan, how could you not be? So John, I turned 50, and my wife, she should just collected the insurance money, but she decides to buy me a week at the Coach K fantasy basketball camp, the K Academy. And I'm like 50 years old. I says, honey, if you want to kill me, just poison my food. It'd be less painful. But I went back there, and you read all Coach K's books, and he really has a culture. And I'll tell you, the one thing he demands, whether you're in a casual relationship with him, where you just meet him and spend a week like I did, or whether you're one of his players, that dude demands a couple things. Number one, you look him in the eye when he talks to you. Even LeBron, USA Basketball, is like, LeBron, I'm your coach. Look me in the eye. And I was talking to him, and he says, the reason you got to look him in the eye is you have to have a culture of honesty. So we're talking about culture, and you have to be able to tell people the truth. And it was interesting, man, because I'm tired and I'm beat up. He goes, hey, how are you enjoying our camp? I says, it's been great. I've learned some things from the players for my AU team. He goes, what about you? I go, well, my basketball days are over. Man, that dude he was serious. He looked me right in the eye, and he goes, your playing days are not over. You have a game tomorrow. I was like, wow. Every level of honesty, you speak the truth with that guy. You talk a little bit about the role of honesty in creating a successful team. Honesty's tough because sometimes we talk about what we think will make people feel good, and we don't want any abrasion. We don't want any confrontation on our team. And I tell you, in my business, that's been a huge weakness. I don't consider myself a dishonest guy. I don't lie, cheat, or steal. But there's been times where I've seen problems, and to keep the peace, I have not been honest because I've been scared of the response. That's easier said than done. What's the role of honesty in creating a successful team? How does that work?
Well, honesty is very important, of course, and there's a time for everything, right? So there are times you don't really want to rock the boat, but we do need truth tellers on the team. We need to always talk about how we can make things better. And this is what you do at the cultural level. You as a team discuss the rules of engagement and say, this is how we're going to approach disagreement. This is how we're going to approach conflict. This is how we're going to share the truth to make each other better. So everyone will actually expect to have the truth spoken to them. Everyone will understand that things that are shared are to make the team better. And people will be inclined not to take it personal because you talk about these things and this is how we do it. So, hey, don't take it personal. because we're all about this as far as part of our culture. We're all about seeking truth. We're all about getting better. And when you do that as a team, everyone knows the rules. Everyone understands it. And that culture becomes a part of who you are. So my family and I, for instance, we'll sit around and we will have the difficult conversations. No one's scared to say what we think, to bring up issues that need to be addressed. And we talk about it. And as a result, we have a lot of openness and honesty in our communication. So I would say, if you're just meeting someone and they ask you your opinion, you may not want to give them the full truth, right? But if we're talking about a team, you want to create this at the level of your team, and I'm sure this is what Coach K does. I know this is what Dabo Sweeney does.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is what Sean McVay does with the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
You have these open and honest conversations that build the trust. And as the trust is built, even though they may not like what's being said, the trust is built so they respect it. And when there's respect and trust, now we can be a great team. I always remember my mom saying to me, don't ever lie to me. If you lie to me, I can't trust you.
Yeah.
And if I can't trust you, we can't have a great relationship.
It's so true. And, we use a lot of sports metaphors because it's such a great arena to watch it displayed and play out. It's such a confrontational thing where you're physically confronting other people trying to achieve a goal. But I'll tell you, look at cultures like Google and, cultures even like, Tesla and Musk and these guys. They're different cultures, So stuff is going to come up. You're not going to go through a season or a fiscal year corporately or in a family without stuff coming up. Negativity is there. There's a world of opposites and balance. There's a yin and a yang. You're going to have all this positive energy and you're going to have all this positive mindset. And you're going to, have all these great goals and plans. Pretty easy to be positive in the preseason. Everyone's going to win. Everyone's got the same goal in the preseason, and same in the corporate world. You build a business. Oh, we're just going to, have this great mission, and we're going to have this leadership and this great team, and we're just going to be awesome. But then all of a sudden, stuff comes up. So, what's the deal when you confront the negativity, the adversity? How do you deal with that?
Well, every team must confront negativity. If you don't, it will persist and exist and wind up sabotaging the team. So you have to address the negativity. You do it at the cultural level. Again, guys, we're going to stay positive. We're going to build a great team. We're not going to allow negativity to sabotage our mission and our purpose. So you bring it up. No energy vampires allowed, no negativity, no complaining, no blaming, and no moodiness. I've literally talked about this with professional teams and put that out there. The coaches love it. The players afterwards will come up to me and say, wow, I needed to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were going to want to run me out of the room and be upset. No, they actually said, I need to hear that. Why? Because they want to be their best and they know that there's something holding them back. No one really wants to be negative. So you bring it to the light. And once you bring it to the light and you address it, now everyone knows on the team that it's not okay to be negative. It's not okay to be an energy vampire. It's not okay to just continually complain and sabotage the team. And as I wrote in the book, I love when Michael Phelps was, meeting with his team, right, before the Olympics. And he said, guys, we're about to go to the Olympics. We have to do this. So if you're going to be all negative, just keep it to yourself, because the more positivity we have as a team, the better off we're going to be. These guys during training camp, the greatest swimmers on earth were complaining, and he was like, no, it's not okay. And he told Bob Costas that the moment he said that, they got closer and closer as a team and went to the Olympics and dominated. And that's the key. You got to weed the negative, feed the positive, so that you can build a great culture where everyone can perform at their highest level. And that's what it's all about. So address the negativity. No energy vampires allowed.
So investing is a team sport, and you're listening to John Gordon. He is the author of The Power of a Positive Team. You win in the locker room first, the energy bus, and among others. And I have to invite everyone to consider building your team. Great entrepreneurs often are not the person with all the knowledge. They're just the leader. They're not, you got great guys like Jobs that were programmers and understood the technology, but there's other guys like Henry Ford that were just great leaders and knew how to surround himself with good people. Milton Hershey was the same way. And I will just say the reason I was so grateful, I'm so grateful to have John, on the podcast, is you will always accomplish more as a team. They talk about investors leverage other people's money, but true entrepreneurs have what we call OPE, which other people's energy, other people's experience, other people's expertise, other people's education, other people's everything. And I invite you to go to John Gordon, it's Jon, johngordon.com, and to go to Amazon. And as you read his books and reflect on this, what I hope happens is that energy, begins to arise at a higher level in your heart. You say, you know what, let's do something cool. Let's solve a problem. Let's start a business, or let's invest as a team and build a team around you. So, John, if you were going to speak to someone because the person I speak to, I try to be a champion for entrepreneurship and encourage people, take a little risk. If you fail, you freaking fail. You don't want to be 90 years old and not have any failures under your belt. And so let's say someone, he listens to Andy's podcast and, he loves the edutainment, loves the guests, but doggone it, it's time to rock and roll. It's time to take a risk. It's time to build something. What would you recommend a guy do to start? How do you start a team? How do you begin to approach people? What would you say to the guy that's just been sitting on that cockeyed sideline? How do you get him to go out and get going?
Well, no one creates success alone. We all need a team to be successful. So we're better together, and then together we accomplish amazing things. So it's knowing that I have to build a team around me to be successful. I wrote a book called The Carpenter. And what I would say from The Carpenter is it's about being a craftsman and designing what you want to create. The carpenter becomes a craftsman when they design and create their masterpiece. So you have to decide, what do you truly want to create? It all starts there. What do I want to build? What do I want to create? If you're in investment, what kind of investment do I want to build? What kind of future do I want to create with this investment? You have to have a vision of what you're creating. And then once you have that vision, you can then work to design it. What kind of team do I want to build? Design that team. What kind of life do I want to create? What kind of career do I want to create? What kind of business do I want to build? What kind of family do I want to build? What does my future look like? Design your masterpiece first and foremost. Start there, and then you can begin building it.
John, I thank you so much for the opportunity for us to feed our mind. We all have to feed our body, and the better food we have, the better body we have. And often after high school or college, some people never read another book. That's it. I have to say that the very best books I've ever experienced came long after high school or college. So I thank you so much for your contribution and the opportunity with all that you've written and all that you said and spoken to not just feed our body, to feed our brain. You've been so gracious with your time. Any last words for our listeners?
Well, I just want to say, wherever you are, whatever you're going through, that God's not done with you yet. My son and I were on a plane with my wife and daughter, and we were going about 10,000 miles above the ground, take off. And next thing you know, as we're in the air, we heard the pilot come on and say, mechanical failure. We're going to try an emergency landing back at ALX. So all I heard was the words try, right? The word try. Like, we're going to try an emergency landing. So we turn around. Next thing you know, we dipped down really fast. We went down so fast that we all thought we were crashing. Somehow we made our way in. And I found out that they actually went down really fast because they were blowing out the fire the way you would blow out a candle.
Wow.
They go down real fast so that the wind will blow it out.
Wow.
We glided in. All the ambulance and so forth, fire trucks met us there. We get off the plane. My son, who's taller than me, I'm only 5'8". He's 6 foot, so he's got a lot of height on me already. And he put his arm around me as we're walking off the plane. He said, "Looks like God has more work for us to do, Dad. God's not done with us yet." And after that moment, I realized I had more work to do. God wasn't done with me yet. And I want people to know that wherever they are, God is not done with them yet. They've got work to do. They've got a difference to make. They got lives to change, people to impact, and they have influence to create, and they have investments to build. So going with what you do in your podcast. And if they understand that, they truly will believe the best is yet to come. So that's what I want to wish people and hope for people and as they move forward.
Great message. If I were to add anything to that, it would ruin it. So we're going to leave it right there. John, thanks so much for taking the time with us. You've been listening to the Cash Flow Academy podcast, where investing is made simple. We've been speaking about how to build a positive team with the book, The Power of a Positive Team by John Gordon. Thank you so much, sir. We'll see you guys next time.
You've been listening to the Cash Flow Academy podcast with Andy Tanner. For more information on investing made easy, go to thecashflowacademy.com.